Good morning, and thanks for tuning in to episode 13 of the What's Your 20 podcast. I'm your host, EPD Special Projects Coordinator Taylor Maris, and joining me this week is Special Operations Commander Captain Jason Thomas, recently promoted.
Yes, recently promoted. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, I know that you recently were promoted to captain, but before you were a police officer, you were in the military.
Yes, I was.
What branch was that?
I was in the U.S. Army.
Okay. So, when you were in the Army, you also had a K-9?
I did.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that and what that was like.
Okay, so I enlisted as a military policeman.
Okay.
What I didn't know, I thought I was going to be a policeman right away, so I didn't realize that the Army put military policemen in an infantry brigade.
Okay.
So I spent the first 3 years jumping out of airplanes and doing convoy escorts.
And you didn't expect to do all that?
I didn't. The recruiter doesn't tell you everything.
Oh, wow. Well, so I've skydived once, and that'll be the only time that I do it.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy jumping out of?
Oh, I was terrified every time.
Okay. What did you enjoy? How did you transition into the role of having a K-9?
Okay, so after about 3 years on active duty, I got into the working dog handler course.
Okay.
And they send you to Lackland Air Force Base, Texas. And again, I was in the Army, but this is a Department of Defense course.
Okay.
And all branches go to Lackland. And it's a 12-week school. And then they sent me to Fort Drum, New York, where I became a handler for a 2-year-old Belgian Malinois named Chuck.
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 That's such not a dog name.
No, it's not. No, it's a very human name. And he was a patrol train and explosive detection.
Okay. So did you have to do the training, or he was already trained?
Chuck was already trained.
Okay.
The military does it a little different than law enforcement does. They pre-train the dogs and they train the handlers separate. And when you go through the course, there are dogs at Lackland that are they're non-deployable.
Right.
Like one of the dogs in our class, he had epilepsy. So he was a great dog, but they didn't want to send him to the desert, and have a medical issue. So they kept him in class and monitored him, and he would just work with the students.
Okay. So whenever you got out of the military, your goal was to come on the police department, or did that just happen?
No, my goal from as soon as I graduated high school, I wanted to be a policeman.
Okay.
That's why I chose to be a military policeman.
Okay.
However, not doing law enforcement and doing just a little bit of security, I didn't really like that. I liked working with the dogs.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then one year I came home for Thanksgiving on leave, and I did a ride along with the Evansville Police Department. And that was it.
Yeah.
I want to be EPD.
Yeah.
Police.
I'll never forget the first ride along I did was with your wife and another female officer.
That was your first one?
That was my first one. And I'll never forget, she was driving and she was going around the curve on Riverside and running code. So lights and sirens. I'm like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I'm like holding on for dear life in the back seat. So yeah, definitely I had that same experience.
Well, that's neat. I knew you did a ride along with her. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So my wife, she's a detective sergeant right now in the crimes unit.
Yeah, she's been a staple on the department, especially in that kind of service. She had started our first gang unit. A lot of people that are newer officers didn't realize we had because that was almost like a volunteer thing that she did. She did that on the side, building information on the gang units.
It was
10 years ago.
Like her and I think 2 other officers helped. I think it was Mike Ward and Brian Watson.
Okay.
Put
Yeah.
it all together.
Yeah, I'm glad that she's back in that role because I know that was a big passion for her years ago. So shout out to her. And I remember talking about the military. I love the picture of you and Crystal. Her hair was so long and curly. That was when you were stationed in Alaska, right?
I was. That was Alaska. Yeah, that was my barracks room in Alaska.
Yeah. I'll never forget. I don't know. For some reason, that picture sticks in my head. Yeah. But so when you came on the police department, how long have you been on?
I've been on 24 years now.
24 years. And I know you as always being a K-9 handler or being involved in the K-9 unit in some aspect. What were your early years on the police department like?
So I spent my first, I guess right after I got out of training, I rode second shift with Joe Dickinson.
Okay.
I rode West Side. And I became a field training officer.
Yeah.
And I was a field training officer for 3 years. And I knew I wanted to be a K-9 handler because I had already done that. But you had to have 3 years on to apply for specialty unit. So during my 3 years, there were 2 openings that I couldn't apply for. I turned in a resume, but I still couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So finally, there was an opening after I had 6 years on, and I was able to get in.
So you've been a part of it for the past 18 years then?
Yes, I was a handler for 16.
Wow.
Dogs.
2 dogs?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. And they were, can you explain like the differences between the dogs that we have on our unit or on the K-9 unit?
I'd love to. I talk about dogs all day.
Yeah.
So my first dog was K-9 Bobby. He was a full-blooded German Shepherd, and he was patrol narcotics trained, and he worked second shift for. I got him when he was 2, and he retired when he was 10. So he had an unusually long.
So that's long.
That's long. I mean, 6 to 8 years is good.
Okay.
So to work that long was really good.
And when you said patrol and narcotics, so a dual-purpose dog.
Yes.
So they're trained to sniff narcotics and then also apprehend as well?
Right. Criminal apprehension, tracking, evidence.
Okay.
Location.
I was talking to somebody over the weekend about, it was a little boy. He wanted to know what the canines do. And I was telling him, well, if I drop my phone in the grass and I couldn't find it, their noses can sniff that out too. Like a lot of people think they can just smell drugs or they're trained just to smell drugs, but they follow scents, like people's scents too, right?
That's correct. So like I brought these notes in here in case I got nervous and I couldn't remember my name.
Yes.
So
Tell us what the notes say.
So I'm holding these papers. I'm kind of sweating on them, and believe it or not, dead skin cells are falling on this paper, and my hair, believe it or not, there's from.
He's bald, by the way.
So if I would drop these papers into tall weeds where I couldn't see them, a dog could come and just find and detect the human scent on these papers.
How long does that scent stay active? Is there a certain time period?
That's a real controversial question.
Okay.
Some folks will say months, some people say not, and it really it depends a lot on the environment too.
Okay.
Dampness will hold the odor down, and sometimes what I've seen is items that are already out there. You train in Evansville, and sometimes there's trash in the field.
Right.
Maybe has been there a couple of days, and the dogs tend to ignore that.
Really?
They do.
Interesting. That's so cool. I need to have you on you or Sergeant Offerman on for all things canine.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
Because really, I wanted you to come on the show because Fall Festival is coming up. So this is being pre-recorded, but it's going to air at the end of September. And a lot of people, I don't think, know how much goes into special operations and the planning for such a large event. And you're over that and Shriners Fest, pretty much any large event that comes through Evansville, you're responsible for the safety plan for it.
That's correct. All of special operations is tasked with, amongst other things, mostly the special events.
Yeah. So what does that look like? We're here in August right now, and are you guys already preparing? Are you already thinking about precautions or things you need to be prepared for the Fall Festival?
Yeah, it's first week of August, and I've put out sign-ups for officers to sign up for their shifts.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to the Nut Club chairman. I've talked to the Nut Club safety chair. We've got a meeting set up here in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. I've talked to the fire department special operations commander, Chief Nick Raber over there. So the planning is already underway.
How stressful is that?
It's not bad until when it's going on and they're 16-hour days and you get kind of tired. About Wednesday.
Yeah. So let me break that up with, what's your favorite thing to get at the Fall Festival?
Oh, my favorite thing. So I'm a connoisseur of a good sausage burger.
Oh,
And I don't have a favorite place. I'll go.
So do you get the donut sausage burger or just the sausage burger?
Just a regular burger.
Oh, my favorite one's right across from our command vehicle.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And they have the deep fried Oreos, so you can get twofold.
Yeah. Now I discovered something new though.
Oh,
last year,
what was it?
Burnt ends at the Outboard Motors
Yes,
Club.
very good. I agree. Yeah. Especially when they're on top of the mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
So, see, us police officers, we not only work, but we like to enjoy ourselves a little bit when we have the time at the Fall Festival, too. But talking about planning and different tools and weapons that we have, I know, was it last year we got the new barricades?
Yes, we did. We got them just maybe 2 weeks before the Fall Festival in 2023.
And a lot of people asked us about those because before that we had just the water barricades.
Right.
And so now we have, are they orange or red? I can't remember the color.
They're yellow.
They're yellow. Okay, well, I'm glad you remember. I mean, you should. But and it was kind of a device that people didn't really know what it is. But can you explain what these newer, if they haven't had the opportunity to see them, these newer barricades are that we set up at Wabash and then on Franklin there?
Yes, we got a grant to purchase those. And we got, I think, 60 of them. They're individual. You have to put them together. Mm-hmm. And we've got a grant for another package as well. And
okay.
What they do, they're kind of like L-shaped. And there's movable gates, so you can drop them and then roll them out of the way if you need to. But it's a secret how you move them.
Okay, we won't tell anybody.
What they do is they basically, if a car would drive over them, it's high center them. The L shape would tip over.
Okay.
And you can get on YouTube. It's all over YouTube. Mifram, MIFRAM.
Okay.
Type that in YouTube. You'll see him in action.
Interesting.
It's pretty impressive. You can feel pretty safe from a reckless driver on Franklin Street.
Really? So will we have additional ones by the time this fall festival comes around?
Not for this fall festival.
And we just have them set up at Wabash and Franklin, right? Are there any other side streets?
So we actually have all streets blocked.
Oh, okay.
There's a mixture of the modular barricades and the water barricades.
Okay. Very cool. So also talking about the fall festival, I know there are some do's and don'ts because you always kind of reach out to the public information office. Hey, can you post this to make sure that people that are attending don't fly drones or bring glass bottles or things like that. Do you have any do's or don'ts for people that are attending, not just the fall festival in general, but any kind of large-scale event that we put on that they should steer away from?
Yeah, I do. What I would recommend, especially if you have children, really for anybody, but especially if you have children, have a pre-planned meeting place. I know we're used to having cell phones now. We're in constant contact, but when you get that many people together, if you've been to the fall festival before, you've been to the 4th of July fireworks on the riverfront, or even to the Ford Center at a concert, you may have realized that your cell phone doesn't work like it should, and you may not be able to call or text. So maybe you could say something like, okay, if you haven't heard from me by 8 o'clock, let's meet over in front of the Gerst house. Maybe plan that with your kids. Just pretend like it's 1980 again.
Yeah. Some people don't know anything about that.
No.
Me being one of them. But also drones.
Drones, that's going to be new this year. The FAA plans to send an air marshal down out of town, and we're probably going to have a temporary flight restriction over the festival. We've never done that before, but that's done across the country. And I spoke to the Air Marshal Service and Department of Homeland Security recently. I went up and worked the Indy 500 this year and met some folks up there. And it was funny. They said, well, you can't really get this enforced unless you have 30,000 people. And I told them, well, let me show you something. We get 100,000 people.
Yeah.
So they were surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We're working on a city ordinance as well. I don't know if that'll be in place by the festival. But you're not going to be able to fly your drone over a crowd of people this year. It's been done in the past, but it will be enforced. So we'll probably need to put out a I need to put out some training to the department as well and the public.
So we'll I know if you're flying a drone within like a hospital or anywhere that there's planes or helicopters coming in, you can't fly it as high. So is this going to be like what's going to happen at the fall festival, or do they put like an actual like barrier around the fall festival, like a geo thing?
It is like a geo fence, but it's notification.
Okay.
It's a notification geo fence. So they'll get if you're operating legally, and if you have your drone, say you got a DJI drone, that's popular. If you take off, your controller will tell you, so there will not be an excuse to not know.
Gotcha.
Because believe it or not, right now, if you try to take off on Franklin Street in that area, you're restricted to 100 feet.
Because of Deaconess?
Correct. The life flight will fly over 100 feet, and where normally you could take a drone up to 400 feet.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Backpacks? How do we feel about?
Allowed.
Okay.
No animals, only service animals. No bicycles. And no
yes,
scooters.
That's a big one. I feel like there are times where you see people just trying to ride their bicycle through wades of people, and I don't think they'll get anywhere quicker than if they were just walking.
Yeah, it's just too many people in that area.
So if somebody was to ride their bicycle there, which is understandable, they just need to walk it through? Ideally, I wouldn't bring it in. Don't bring it in. Lock it up outside the Fall Festival footprint.
If you carry it in, you can still run over someone. Little kids,
right?
They're excited for the rides. They're going to run out in front of you.
Okay.
And it's not going to be your fault, and you can still hurt somebody accidentally.
Yeah, you sure can. And I know dogs are a big thing, too. A lot of people want to take their dogs, and it's hot, and there's so many people, and they can eat all the chocolate on the ground. Like, just don't do it. Don't do it. So whenever you're going over these special operations plans, what other agencies do you work closely with?
Oh, I can think of about 15 public safety agencies, and that's not including the local clubs and the businesses on the street.
Right.
And a lot of them are local, some of them are federal. So the main one outside of EPD is the fire department. I work real close with their special operations chief. And then you've got the hospitals, AMR, the ambulance service, Tri-State Towing,
EMA,
Indiana Department of Homeland Security brings people from out of town, FBI,
Yeah.
National
Well,
Guard.
and it's nice to know, too, you know, in the world we live in, you can never be too safe. But I always appreciate when I see the guys, I assume it's from Homeland Security, but walking around, just making sure there aren't any backpacks or bags that are left unattended that, you know, could contain something that could cause a traumatic incident.
Right, that's a good point. Even though bags are allowed, you don't want to leave it land because that could cause an alarm for some people. You know, we've had incidents like the Boston Marathon. That's public information. People left backpacks and had bad stuff in there.
Yeah. So definitely, if you do see something like that, or any an emergency, whether it's medical or any type of situation where the police should respond to, our command vehicle is always parked in front of the Gerst house, and there's always a police officer at or nearby it, somewhere in the vicinity. So if somebody were to see something, would you recommend them to just go ahead and find an officer in that area, still call 911? What do you recommend?
I recommend trying 911 first.
Okay.
However, we already talked about you might not get out. So try to work your way towards the command vehicle, and if you see an officer, flag them down.
Yeah, perfect.
And then we have we have people specifically trained to respond to that. We have a bomb dog on duty.
Yeah. And I love the pictures that we do of him every year.
Yeah, Boomer.
Yeah, ever since we got Boomer. You originally had him and did a little bit of training with him.
Yeah, I initially had Boomer. He stayed at my house for between 3 and 6 months. I can't remember. He was there for a long time until we picked out a handler until he went to his forever home.
Yeah.
And I didn't do much with him, but we did a little bit because I wanted him to build a bond with his handler. But
yeah. Well, he needed to touch up on some social skills and things like that, too.
Yes. So I didn't bring him to his first fall festival.
I know.
He wasn't trained, but.
Yeah, and so that we have a picture of him just there on Franklin Street looking, and then we recreated it last year, and so I can only hope that we do it again this year.
We should, because he's grown again.
I know. It's so great. But they're down there all week.
Oh yes, they all of special ops is they're from open to close. And when I say open, we're there at 8 a.m. while the vendors are setting up before it's open to the public.
That is a long week for you guys.
Long week.
And talking about hours, how many hours of preparation for safety and planning do you think you put in for this event?
Oh, I couldn't even calculate that. I've already put in probably just last week 4 or 5 hours already.
Yeah.
It's just going to increase as we go.
And comparing this to, say, Shriners Fest, I mean, it's uncomparable, like the extent that we have to do in planning and safety for the Fall Festival.
It is. It's a lot of planning. I've been accused of over-planning. But I think that's my job.
Yeah.
You can't really plan for everything, but I think you can plan for every contingency. Like you can plan for a tornado, a flood, active shooter, a sniper, reckless driver. The officer still has to improvise, and we do that all the time. But I want to try to, with my over planning, I want to reduce the number of on the fly decisions that the officers have.
Yeah. I have a crisis communications book that I'm working on, and it's for event planning like that. If we have a murder, if we have an officer involved shooting, how do we respond? When do we respond? So really just a plan. It's always good to have any kind of plan. And so talking about planning, like as years progress, what are some things, like, are there going to be anything new that the police department's going to implement this year for safety or additional police officers or anything along those lines?
Oh, yeah. I think, the biggest thing is the drone enforcement, the temporary flight restriction on the drones. Last year it was the improved barricades.
Right.
So
okay.
That's really the number one
and
change.
We utilize a drone down there if we need to, though.
We do.
Will we be restricted?
When the FAA imposes a temporary flight restriction, public safety is exempt.
Okay.
And if you have your Part 107, you're a commercial pilot, you can also apply for an exemption.
Okay.
But you have to do it. You have to do it in advance. I can't remember how far in advance, but the FAA will give a commercial pilot that's not emergency responder a waiver.
And I think that's something too. Looking back at the years of the Fall Festival. Used to we would have guys at elevated levels that they could see the crowd. Now we have mounted patrol, and they are, whenever it's time to go home, it's time to go home. Like, you guys have been there all day and just want to go home. And if people are just lingering and don't want to go, even though we've told them they need to leave, when we bring out mounted patrol and officers can see, how many people are in the crowd, people leave.
They do. We do a big, I don't know, in the military we call it a police call. We'd line up, get online, and that was to pick up trash. But we would just pick up the dirt off the ground. But we kind of do it, the police call, just make sure everybody's out of the park, make sure nobody's hurt. Sometimes, it gets hot. People, we have a lot of heat-related casualties. People just pass out. And so sometimes you find somebody when you're walking through the park at the end of the night that's just not feeling well and might need medical personnel.
Yeah. I already asked you about your favorite food. What's your favorite drink? Are you a cider guy?
I used to like ski.
That's what I was going to say.
But I don't drink sodas anymore, so tea and water for me.
You like Sprite, too, I thought.
I do occasionally. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There is a booth that started serving coffee.
Yeah.
I'm a coffee drinker. So at the end of the night, I can get a hot coffee, even on a hot day.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
The cobbler, too. If it's a cold fall festival, the warm cobbler is good. If it's hot, the warm cobbler, not so much. So we've covered a lot in the past 20 minutes, and I know that you have your notes, too. Is there anything on there that you want to share?
Oh, I think we covered a lot of it, actually.
Okay.
I wanted to give a shout-out to my second canine, Abbott. We forgot to mention.
Yes.
Abbott.
We talked about Bobby, but not Abbott.
So he was a Belgian Malinois Shepherd mix.
Uh-huh.
And he was also dual purpose, and he was patrol narcotics detection.
Yeah. Do you have any, your favorite memory or any, good canine stories you want to share before we end?
Oh, good canine stories. Got a lot of good stories.
I'm sure.
We have a boat on Kentucky Lake. We go to Kentucky Lake. You know about the lake life.
I do know. It's been a long time though.
Yeah. So we took Abbott to the lake. This dog is a police dog. He lives in the house with us. He occasionally sleep in the bed when I wasn't around with Crystal.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law, he loved her. He would try to get on her lap. But we took this big, scary police dog, to the lake, and he was terrified of the boat.
Really?
He did not like he would swim in the lake at the camp. We put him on the boat, and he did not like it.
And this isn't like a John boat. Like, this is it's a home in a boat.
Yeah,
pretty much.
We have a houseboat.
And so
poor guy.
He just didn't like.
No, he just he puts out his claws and he just peel out and try to run inside. Once he's inside, he's okay.
So when he's on the carpet, it was okay, maybe.
So he didn't really enjoy it like we thought he
would.
Because we knew he liked to swim.
You said that was Abbott?
That was Abbott.
Did Bobby like the boat?
We didn't have it then.
Oh, okay. Well, I get that question a lot because there are agencies where canine handlers, the canines stay at headquarters.
Yeah, Lexington. I work a lot with those guys when I was a handler and as a trainer and a judge. I work with those guys. I got some good friends that are Lexington handlers, and they have a facility just like we did when I was in the military. The dogs would
really?
Stay in the kennel, and we'd have to go pick them up. Now, I got a story about Chuck. I forgot this.
Yeah.
So the military rule is the dog stays in the kennel unless he's patrolling the street, or if, I would travel with him and take right back to the kennel. Chuck may have came to my apartment a few times. Crystal and I had an apartment off post in Watertown, New York. When I'd come back from traveling with him, we would stop by the house, and one time I got caught by the landlord.
Oh,
there's no pets.
Yeah,
and I explained that this is not a pet. This is
a working dog.
And he said, well, is he housebroken? So I said, Chuck, take a break, and pointed to a bush, and he goes over there and he's on the bush. So landlord said, okay, he can come in. He's not gonna have an accident.
Wow, I don't know why when I hear that's still a thing. It just surprises me because all I know is Evansville, and these dogs go home and they're a pet to the family.
Yeah, I don't know of any other agency other than Lexington outside of the military that does that anymore. Maybe they are, but most people don't.
And I really didn't even know that was a thing until a year ago. A news outlet called me wanting to know if they can visit the dogs in their kennels. And I repeated it to somebody, and they said, well, there are agencies that do that. And it just blew my mind, and it still does.
It's pretty bizarre, isn't it?
Well, and I understand why, but at the same sense, like, once those dogs get in that car, they know it's time to work. It's amazing how they can turn it on and turn it off.
They do. Both of my dogs, the first year that I had them, they had to stay outside in the kennel because they didn't know. They were just at home running around trying to find something. I don't know if they were trying to find drugs or people, but they wouldn't stop.
They wouldn't find any of that in your home.
No, they wouldn't. So then after about a year, they figured out, okay, I can relax at home. And we did bring Bobby and Abbott lived in the house.
Yeah. Do you guys have any pets right now?
We have one cat.
Okay.
Well,
because I know you guys are a pet family.
We are. Since Abbott passed, we haven't had a dog. It's first time ever.
Yeah, you could probably travel more though.
We can. Cats are low maintenance.
Yeah,
we haven't taken the cat to the boat yet.
Well, we'll wait for pictures on that. There's still time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast, and maybe we can have you or Sergeant Offerman on again to talk about the canines, since
that'd be amazing. That's
something that both of you are very passionate about, and I know you and Hoover and Offerman are very involved in our canine unit. So that would be something great to share with the community as well, what to know about these dogs and expect when you're around them. So
Sergeant Offerman and I both, we could talk about dogs forever.
Yeah, Yeah.
It'll be a whole other show.
Yeah, we should totally do it. But thank you for being here. And thank you for tuning in to the What's Your 20 podcast. You can tune in again on October 12th to hear from retired chief and current Henderson Chief of Police, Billy Bolin. We're going to talk about the International Chiefs of Police Conference that's coming up. Make sure to subscribe and follow our Spotify and YouTube accounts to stay up to date on all podcast releases. Have a good weekend.